Hi everyone. Listen, I've just come from watching a video by it's not the attachment nerd, it's attachment nerd on TikTok. And she was explaining about how the mentality of abusers is a very complex one that's driven by, you know, that's driven by specific motivations of protecting themselves, right? Um, if you haven't seen that video of hers, you need to go check it out. Attachment nerd on TikTok, abusive mentality, and you'll find the video. She basically explains that when abusers turn around and abuse you, they're not thinking of abusing you or harming you, they're thinking of maintaining control. And this is the thing, right? What goes into an abuser's mind is that when they are made to feel vulnerable, they interpret that like their feelings of vulnerability are so strong, it feels to them like they are actually being hurt. They're not being hurt by being vulnerable, but maybe because of some other occurrences in their life when they've been vulnerable, and that vulnerability has, has manifested in somebody else being abusive towards them. They may manifest that vulnerability themselves as a gateway to being harmed by somebody else. So with them conflating vulnerability and conflating vulnerability with harm, because that's how powerful their emotions are, that's how powerfully they're triggered by feeling vulnerable, what they'll do is they'll lash out in the same way that their abusers did, or they'll lash out in a way that maintains they gain absolute control over their environment. That means stepping on other people's boundaries. That means speaking viciously to people. That means beating people up. That means yelling. That means whatever it takes to gain control over the situation, and usually in an abusive fashion. It can also include stalking as well. It can also include that. Now, I'm in a rather unique position because the worst fears of an abuser, namely that your vulnerability opens you up to being abused more, is actually what happens during the life of a TI. So it's weird because all your worst paranoia and all your worst fears are validated anyway. You show vulnerability, that vulnerability is exploited over and over again in a bid to pick at your wounds. So this is a very unique situation that targeted individuals find themselves in. And it really kind of turns the abusive mentality arc kind of upside down, because if you're in a situation where your vulnerability literally is being used to harm you in every situation through state sanctioned abuse, then how does it, then when you do end up mistreating people, it becomes another complex thing, because because you're being made hypersensitive by people's actions and words and things like that. It's like, how can you tell when you're like throwing back at somebody who's deliberately abusing you? How can you tell when you're doing that versus when you're harming an innocent person? This is one of the reasons why I am so invested in psychology and so invested in figuring out how one's mindset works, because I know in the past that I've really hurt some people who didn't deserve it. I know I have, right? So hearing things like abusive mentality and that attachment style and all that type of stuff, and conflating vulnerability for harm and abuse for control, like all of these things, learning all of these things, it helps me to understand the complex emotions that comes from being a state sanctioned abuse victim. And I say victim and not survivor because it's still ongoing. If it wasn't ongoing, I'd be a survivor. But because it's ongoing, it's victim. You're making a victim out of that person. I don't, and for the record, I don't fuck with that whole I don't call myself a victim. I'm not a victim. It's just gaslighting by abusive people so that you don't acknowledge that legally you are a victim of abuse. So I don't fuck with that, okay? But going back to the abusive mentality, when she said about vulnerability and fear being conflated, I felt all the way called out, but in a good way, because it really made me think about how I've treated people, not only just people that have hurt me or people that have broken the rules, like subconscious rules that I've held back here, not even just that, but people that I've been attracted to as well. Because when you feel really passionate about someone, you know, when you really want to be that person, that vulnerability, that's a vulnerability that is peak vulnerability. When you are in love with someone or you're attracted to someone and you don't know whether or not they're attracted to you or they're not attracted to you, or like, it's not their fault. It really isn't their fault, because they can't help how they feel. And to be honest, you're not supposed to help how you feel. You like who you like, and that's the end of it, right? But because there's a vulnerability inside your mind that's been triggered, you've laid your entire emotions out on the table, and that's not returned. It makes you act in weird ways. Now, this can range from being standoffish and cold to stalking, but it makes you act in weird ways. So the abusive mentality is it's not just with regards to, somebody speaking out of turn or what we think is out of turn. It's not just a result of, people just disregarding your feelings or anything like that. It can also relate to love as well. And it opens up this whole can of worms that, if we really look at our behavior and if we really, really like stop to examine it, we'd find out that we're really, really not good people, because people do this to each other all the fucking time. And it just makes you feel like, man, we are just not good people at all, man. But I like it. I like the fact that I'm challenged in this way. And I like the fact that, not only do I get perspective into the people who abused me, but I also gain perspective into how I treat people and why I do these things. And I like that. I like the fact that I can put a name to, put a name to maybe the entitlement that can be within me sometimes, that I can put a name to the entitlement that my abusers have. It makes me feel good to know that I can put a name to that. And if I can identify that, then I can heal it, And I love that. I really, really do. So, yeah, I love that. I absolutely love that. Listen, check out Attachment Nerd's video. It's a minute long. It's not that long in comparison to this video, but go ahead and check it out. And yeah, it's on TikTok. Attachment Nerd, abusive mentality. Somebody's requesting to be in the live. Hold on a second. Let me see if I can. Okay. Hello? Hey.
Hi, morning.
Hey, how's it going?
Fine, thank you. I actually found you a couple of days ago when I was searching on PIP assessments.
Mm-hmm.
And I found your video quite interesting actually. But it's a bit off topic. I've got like 2 questions for you. So the first one,
Yeah, sure.
when you mentioned something about I came in quite late actually, your abusers and being able to like find the names of I can't remember, what did she say, something about it being repeated, right? And you're able to identify people's behaviors.
Yeah.
Is it narcissistic abuse are you talking about, or what behaviors?
Listen, man, it can range. It can be narcissistic abuse, it can be any type of abuse, but it doesn't matter what the abuse is.
Right.
Listening to that video right there, it just made me think it can be any type of abuse. Do you understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But when it's that far gone that people are conflating being made to feel vulnerable with actually being harmed, when it goes that far, then it's unlikely that those people will ever change.
Right.
Like if you look at, Attachment Nerd's video and you see what she says about the abusive mentality, apparently therapists have found that people with that type of mentality, 95% of them that have been in therapy sessions are unlikely to change.
Yeah,
And only
definitely.
5% are likely to change, because once you conflate vulnerability with harm and abuse with control, once it goes that far, it can be very difficult to unpack that and to tear yourself away from that, because it's already like those emotions are already conflated.
It's
And
true.
unpacking them, it involves so much nuance and so much, and a lot of the times that the human brain can't take that amount of nuance. So that's why, like, people with abusive mentalities, they tend not to change.
You know, when
But
you
with
had
me
your
now,
you know what, I like to call it spiritual awakening, right? When I learned
it is a
about
spiritual awakening.
yeah, I love to call it that. And
Mm,
basically, once it did happen, I did feel great, because it's like, okay, this is what's wrong with me. I'm an empath. I'm a this. I'm a that. You know,
mm,
it's the way I'm nice to people that's actually making me prey and making me a victim to all these sort of narcissistic people. Do you get it? People want to use people who are like nice and, vulnerable, but like,
yeah.
I feel like at the same time it becomes overwhelming, because it's like, oh
Of
my
course
god,
that they
like
are.
this person's probably borderline. um you did you watch the Amber Heard trial at all?
I did, yeah.
Right, so I think they said she had like a borderline something
BPD,
personality.
yeah. I
Yeah,
actually touched on that in one of my videos.
really. Like,
I touched on that
I don't
because
I don't know, I just find it really overwhelming, to be honest. Like, I deal with these sort of people like every day, like literally every day. I can go outside and people just try me. People just try
are you
me.
are you a targeted individual as well? Are you a TI?
You know what? As I was doing my research, it
Mm,
did pop up though, but also empathy popped up as well. Because I feel like it's everywhere I
mm,
go. Like, okay, so for example, the GP practice,
yeah.
speaking to NHS workers on the phone,
Mm-hmm,
to
mm-hmm,
being at work, like people always want to try me. Like, for example, they'll talk to me with such disrespect. And before, I
yeah.
used to be, how can I say it? I used to take it, right? Because I didn't have a voice, because of like my
Mm,
abusive, childhood and whatnot and so forth. So I used to be
mm,
like a doormat. Like, people can chat shit and I won't. Ah, oh, Stella won't say nothing. Like, let me chat shit to her. Let me pick on her. To get it.
yeah, yeah,
But then
yeah.
that shit affects people as they grow, and especially when they
It's
have
true.
their spiritual awakening. You're then like, nah,
Yeah.
I ain't taking this shit no more. So it's kind of like I react all the time, and I can't help it. It's like, if I don't react, I start feeling crazy inside. I feel like,
Oh God.
how can I explain it?
Yeah.
It's like you don't want to be a target, but I feel targeted everywhere. So when you're talking about targeted individual,
Mm.
yes, but I've
Because
seen
the
it. But
thing
I
is,
feel like
if you're
targeted
going through this,
individuals a bit more extreme than like my sort of
I know,
targeting.
I know it seems really extreme, because the thing is, at first, the only thing you really notice is the psychological stuff, like
Yeah.
people turning on their headlights when you walk past, or just really weird behavior. Like that, you can't put your finger on it, but
Mm-hmm.
that's exactly what gaslighting is.
Right.
It's these little things to make you hyper vigilant and to
Yes,
make you
I'm
question your
definitely
own
that. I
sanity
notice everything.
and to
Yeah.
make you feel paranoid. Do you get it?
Yeah.
And then when people are unnecessarily rude to you, 9 times out of 10, what I found is that that's usually on purpose. Like, there's no way you're going to walk down the road and experience that type of shit everywhere you go, not even as a black person, not
Mm.
even as a woman. There's no way in hell that it's going to be that frequent unless you're a targeted individual. There's no way.
It's true, and it's literally
There's
every
just no
day.
way.
So once it's happened, I clocked that I can't actually. I don't want to be like too. You know what? Fuck it. Like, I've noticed that I can't actually work. I can't work. Like, I recently quit,
Mm.
and I've
Mm-hmm.
quit numerous amount of times. and it's
Mhm.
because of this targeted shit. Like I'll come in, I'll be excited to work, right?
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, oh, go and do this, go and do that, but in a rude manner. Oh, you're not meant to do it like that. What are you doing? And I'm and I'm
Work
new.
is the absolute worst.
Yeah,
Yeah.
literally. And I'm new as well. And I'm thinking, who the fuck are you talking to? Like, don't talk to me like that. So I literally say that. I literally talk to these people. I tell them in my mind, like, don't speak to me like that. Do you get it? Like, I'm not your child. I'm not your sister. I'm definitely not your mum. Don't speak to me like that. Period. So, so these people are like, oh, I'm gonna report you. I'm like, bruv, I've already reported you. I'm already 2 steps ahead. To get it?
Right.
So I report these people, but the thing is, it's like an institution of people like this. I've noticed that the managers are like that. The
Mm.
supervisors are also narcissistic. They're all toxic. It's a toxic environment. Do you get it? And
Mm.
then loads of good people leave. So now when I look
Yeah.
to the reviews now, it's like, don't work for
Mhm.
this company. They're evil. They don't even want to pay you
Yeah.
right. It's a toxic
Mm.
environment. They don't even, it's just terrible. So I noticed this is everywhere I literally go. So I can't do the.
This is where it really gets complicated because there are a lot of, as far as I know, there are quite a few high ranking people in companies that employ this tactic against their employees
Yes.
all the time, like just the gang stalking shit all the time.
Yes.
That's the first thing. The second thing is that you're a black woman, right?
I am. I am.
Yeah, we're both black women and we're both women. Like, there's all that to unpack. So
Yeah.
already we're already on the back foot
Right.
as it is without being TIs. And then it gets to a point where it gets crazy, the disrespect gets crazy, but then that can happen with just us existing.
Thank you.
So it can be
Thank you.
difficult to pick apart whether or not we're actually TIs or whether this is just a systemic thing that's happening. But from my mind, I think you are a TI
Right.
if it's getting to a point where literally everybody is doing this to you and everybody's being disrespectful and you
Literally.
know it and it's
Literally.
not, and they're making it plain that they don't respect you. That's
Right.
TI. That's TI stuff.
Imagine leaving work 3 times because of people. Like I'm quite like, what's that word? Like I think the word is I have like a big ego. Like I feel, how can I explain it? It's like I don't
Big
ask people
ego.
for handouts. Do you get it? Like I'm
Hmm.
not someone
Hmm.
that's like, oh, give me this, give
You
me
mean
that.
you're proud?
Pardon me?
You mean you're proud?
Basically, I guess. Very, very. So it's like I'm not gonna let someone walk me out my fucking job. Like you can't do that to me. But when it comes to it, when it comes to a point where I feel this shit is actually affecting my mental health. No matter how much
I
I'm
was going to say that it's
disrespecting,
affecting your mental health. Yeah,
definitely. As much as
it's not right, man.
I'm disrespectful back, telling them to suck your mum or go and talk to your grandfather like that, I'm not your child. It's like they don't care. They do care, but so they rank up the pressure to make you want to leave more. It's like I'm gonna do
That's
this.
another thing. That's
Yeah.
another thing. When it doesn't matter how you react, because the thing is, I've been through a lot here with my neighbors and stuff,
Mm.
and it doesn't matter. Like I've had thoughts of suicide. They've been aware of that. I think they even called the police or the authorities about it.
Oh shit.
I've had suicidal. No, no, no. I've had suicidal ideations.
Yeah, I've got that
I
on my
literally
record. Yeah,
threatened to
I can
beat like
relate.
the mum's ass like more than once. Like it didn't matter what I did, these people were still harassing me, and especially the kids. And it's getting to a point now where I've
You've
just
dealt
been
with it as
minding.
well. Oh my god.
Yeah, yeah. And the thing is, I'm minding my business. I'm completely minding my business. I've been minding my business for the best part of a month now.
Right.
I've barely made any videos on them, and they're just getting desperate
Mm.
because it's like I'm not reacting, I'm not responding, I'm not giving them what they want, so they're just getting desperate up there. And it's like, well, that's got nothing to do with me because I made up my own mind that I was gonna just focus on what I'm doing. Because if you're not gonna stop and you're not gonna leave me alone,
Have you spoken to
then
them by any chance?
yeah, yeah.
What's
Yeah.
their response? What's their
Listen,
response?
man, when it comes to my neighbors harassing me, I'm always the ones like, why the fuck are you doing this? Like, literally, directly, I'm always direct. I'm like, why the fuck are you doing this?
Mm,
And yet they keep talking behind a door, they keep talking behind a wall, anything other than to my face. To my face, I don't say shit.
that's terrible.
They're looking down at the ground, doing all that cowardly stuff. And then as soon as there is a wall between us or a door between us, that's when they want to talk shit.
That's crazy. All that indirect. And they make sure you can hear them as well.
They make sure you can hear
That's
them.
the
They
worst
weaponize their
part.
conversations against you and weaponize everything that they say against you. I won't lie to you.
Mm.
Perhaps have broken into my house before. They've broken into my house before, and they've even contaminated my food and drink sometimes.
Oh my God.
And stolen shit. Yeah, it's really bad. It's really bad. It's like words can't even go to how horrific this shit is. And that's just a warm-up round. There are people in my position who have gone through a lot worse than me, who have been trafficked, who have been, it's so bad.
Oh Lord.
It's so bad. You've got people who have been trafficked, like, you know, vice trafficking. You've got people who have been intentionally drugged, people who have been spat at in the street, beaten up.
No, I couldn't take that. I couldn't. Even the
Those
words
people are
already
very
is
strong.
enough.
Those people are stronger than me. Because, you know, if I was going to go through some shit like that, either they'd have to die or I'd have to die. One of the two. But ain't nobody being left alive at the end of that shit. There is no way.
It's wild.
So those people are stronger than me. But yeah, like, I've had a lot of stuff happen to me over the years.
It's wild.
And
I watched the video of the assessment. That was the second question. And it got me very angry on his side. I was watching it and it was at night, like a couple of days ago, and then the morning I was watching it again to finish it off. And the way the man was speaking, I feel like it was a white man. I don't know if it was over the
he
phone.
was white, yeah.
Right. So I felt like the man was being extremely, extremely unfair and so dismissive. Every time you would speak, so for example, he would ask you a question like, how's your how are you going outside, or let's say mixing with people? Oh yeah, I can go outside fine. And let's say you're talking, okay, so da 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 da, but you're explaining yourself and he won't even acknowledge you at all. Yeah. And I'm like, I could never, if that happens to me, because I've got assessment happening, but I don't know when. That's the only thing, because I only applied recently. If that happens to me, I'm not able to. I can't do that, and I'm definitely gonna record, because that's one of my issues. Like, I can't tolerate. I've tolerated it for so long, and now it's made me crazy.
It just feels like you're just running on empty. I've been there. I've been there, man.
I can't
It's just a
tolerate.
lot.
You know, after everything I know about abusive people and narcissism, there's no way I'm still gonna allow anybody, like even the managers.
I hear you. I hear you. I hear you, babe. I really do.
Definitely.
I really do. I was like that when I was like, you know, when I first started living alone, I was like that.
Right.
Because at first I would try to give people the benefit of the doubt.
Yes.
I tried to give people the benefit of the doubt, and then they turn out to be gang stalkers. But even when they turn out to be gang stalkers, I'm still like, nah, keep a lid on it, keep a lid on it.
Yeah.
But then it gets to a point where I can't fucking keep a lid on it anymore. And I'm like, nah, fuck off. You're just perping me, fuck off. I can't deal with that bullshit anymore.
Honestly. But how did you, what was your experience like with these people after your assessment? Like, what happened and stuff like that?
They just gave me the money. Like, I'm not being funny, right? But if you look at my medical records, because I've got my medical records here.
Right. So you
every
sent that
single
over?
time I've spoken about, I made a point, because I'm already on the mental health and I'm not getting off it. They're not going to take me off it. So I always make a point to bring up the Havana syndrome, bring up the fact that I'm being attacked by satellite weaponry. I always bring up the fact that I'm being harassed by my neighbors. I always make a point to bring up the injuries that are sustained as a result of everything that I've gone through. I
Right.
always make it a point to bring all that up to almost every medical professional that I speak to. Without any evidence, without any research, they will turn around and they will call it delusional. Now, I'm going to sit in front of that PIP office and I'm going to tell them everything. I'm going to tell them 100% truth. I'm going to say, this is what's happening to me. And they're going to come to the same conclusion. They're going to, they're going to come to the same conclusion that I'm delusional.
Wow.
They'll just pay up.
So because they
They'll just
believe,
pay up.
that it's delusion, excuse me,
Mm.
that's the reason they basically paid you, because they
Yeah,
believe.
that's what I believe. Because the thing is, if they don't give me the money and they assume that I'm well enough, to be able to correctly deduce that I'm going through state sanctioned abuse, that I'm being, that I'm going through state sanctioned abuse. If they believe that I'm well enough for this to actually be fact, then why give me the money?
True.
Because
You've got a
then
point.
that's just, yeah.
You definitely
If
got a
I'm
point.
not mentally ill, enough for this whole thing to be a lie, and if I'm mentally well enough for all of this to be true, then that would mean benefit fraud, wouldn't it? That's the way I play it. That's the way I see it. But for other people, it might be different. So you have to be aware that my individual story is different, because I take the humiliation that I've been subjected to and I turn it to my advantage, because you're not going to be out here calling me crazy for talking about this stuff and I'm not going to get something out of it. You want to carry on with that lie that I'm not being abused by the state. You want to carry on with that lie that people are not breaking into my house. You want to carry on with that lie that people are not threatening my life. You want to carry on with that lie, then you can pay me for the privilege.
Shit, then. I hear you.
You can pay me for the privilege. I'm not going to make it easy for you. I'm not going to make it easy for you. If you're going to carry on with this state-sanctioned abuse, I'm not going to make it easy. I'm going to make it hard. I'm going to make it very hard for you. Because when everything comes out, it's on video that I said Havana syndrome was going on.
So what is
It's on
Havana?
record.
What is Havana?
Like, if the truth ever came out, right?
Yeah.
It's on video. It's on my medical records. It's everywhere. You understand? If the truth ever comes out that this Havana syndrome thing was real and citizens were being attacked with it, the evidence is right there. And all the doctors who lied, all the doctors who knowingly said, oh, I believe this is delusion, knowing full well they didn't believe it was delusion at all, because Savannah syndrome has been talked about for decades. Okay? Right there. All of the evidence is right fucking there. There's already been a woman who was able to get herself discharged from mental health because she was a qualified pharmacist. Wow. And they had to conclude that Havana syndrome was actually real. And that's just one person. Like I said, if these people are going to lie about me and humiliate me, they're going to fucking pay me.
How was you treated?
Me.
I don't know if you've actually ever been, I believe you've been, but to the hospitals, because there was a documentary I watched only 2 weeks ago, and it seemed quite more abusive than actual care homes, because I've seen I've seen the care home documentary on the I think it was BBC or something like that, or BBC Three, I'm not sure. And the abuse that I actually saw on these documentaries were horrific. But then when I saw the mental health one, oh my God.
Shocking.
It was worse.
Shocking.
It was literally
mental health hospitals, they treat people like zoo animals in there.
Yeah. You get this thing where they lock them away.
They didn't treat me like that because they know I'll fucking start shit. So it's like, I'm one of those people, I will start shit at every opportunity. So it's like they want to keep it down. They want to keep everything down. But no. And I get along well with people in psychiatric hospitals anyway. So
that's all right.
Yeah.
At least you didn't go to because I've seen bad. When I watched it, I was like, no, this is too much. Even women took their own lives because they've been in, what's the word,
Institutionalized,
institutionalized.
yeah.
Yeah, they like separate them, put them in a different room, no TV, no phone. It gets so
Mm,
extreme for no reason. Oh, this is what they'll be saying. Oh, she's such an idiot. You know how Jamie is. Jamie's in there because she's just such an idiot. I don't
mm,
like her. And then
mm,
Jamie will be telling her mum, these people here hate me, right? But her mum's like,
mm,
no, no, don't worry, love. They don't hate you. But once the video came out in the documentary, the mum
mm.
she was finished. She started crying. She's like, oh, I basically lied to my daughter. So she basically gaslit her daughter, but without knowing.
Yeah,
You know,
but that's what family does to you. They gaslight you into, because
making
they
you
don't
think,
want to believe
believe
or they
it,
don't feel
right?
strong enough to deal with it. They gaslight you into thinking that none of this
It's
is
not real.
real.
It's not
I've had
happening.
two family members straight up tell me they don't believe in it. And they're like, and I'm like sitting here like,
You don't even know.
you don't believe it. How is that love?
Literally.
How is that love? How is
Mm.
that caring for someone? How is that you're not ashamed of yourselves? Not like you're not ashamed of yourselves for saying things like that?
Mm. If I ever had a kid or anything like that, I'm telling them now,
Mm,
like, don't put me in no home. Like, just think about all the care and the nurture that I gave you guys growing up. Do you get
mm,
it? Because I feel like people that put their parents in homes, bruv, they don't love them. And I feel like it's not just that they don't love them, their parents probably were abusive growing up. That's why they're like, no, I can't handle you. Do you get it? If you've
mm,
got a
interesting.
narcissistic parent or parents, they become worse with age. They become more evil, more abusive. That's why a lot of white people, they're like, nah, I
Mm,
can't take care of mum. She needs to go inside. But some of them are just
mm,
selfish. Some adult kids can be, like selfish and be like, no,
mm.
I don't want to look after my mum. My mum can't stay here.
Things are getting worse out here, so we can't even guarantee that. I don't know if I'll ever have kids, probably not. But
Really?
even if I did, yeah, I'd like
You don't want a
think
husband
about the
or
situation logically.
boyfriend?
I'm being bombarded with electronic weaponry every single day. Like, again, I'm a Havana syndrome victim. I'm not a survivor because this shit hasn't ended.
Okay.
So I'm being bombarded with electronic weaponry every day. And on top of that, I'm going through neighborhood harassment. On top of that, I've got the authorities on my ass. Imagine me having kids on top of that, and I got this shit going on. No way in hell.
Okay, that's
Because there
difficult.
is a TI that I know that's a parent,
Mm.
and because they were a TI, it was at every single opportunity, social services, social services, social services.
Oh my God, no. That's terrible. That's absolutely devastating.
I can't fault the parent for bringing children into the world because I know that when you have a life that you want to look after or you have a life growing inside you, it's very difficult to disconnect those feelings. And all you want to do is look after that person and give that person your whole world, you
Yeah,
know?
definitely.
So I don't judge any parents who are TIs for bringing children into the world,
Mm-hmm.
but I personally couldn't do it because I know the heartache that I would go through time and time again, bringing a child into the world.
Right.
And then there's the potential that that child could turn out to be a gang stalker as well, because that happens
What?
with some TIs. Their
No.
children become perps. Yeah, it's
Wow.
too much of a risk, babe. Too much of a risk.
Your own child. That's wild. I've never heard that. That is
There is no
wild.
such thing as your own in this world. That's what being a TI teaches you. There's no such thing as your own in this world.
Mm.
The only thing is that is your own is you. And even then they're trying to fuck that up.
So
Because
don't this
remember
stress
this,
you out? Don't it cause you like
of course it
anxiety?
does every day, but it's like I have to try to make myself happy wherever I can. The whole thing stresses me out. It like if I had to really let it sink in exactly how much I've gone through over the years and what's been done to me, I would go absolutely, I'd go even more nuts than I've been going.
Right.
So I have to keep myself happy, keep myself. I mean, I don't know if it's necessarily healthy for me to do that. I don't think it's necessarily healthy for me to do that. But I just feel like if I don't do that, if I don't keep myself positive, if I don't, allow myself to just feel happy,
Right.
if I don't do that, then I'm just gonna, lose a part of myself. Me being miserable has never stopped anyone from hurting me.
That's a
So I
fact.
might as well
Yeah.
make myself happy, because it's not going to stop anybody from hurting me
No.
if I'm miserable and downtrodden. It's just going to make these people get more satisfaction out of what they're doing to me. And I've seen it with other TIs.
And
There
they're
is another
sick.
TI in Exeter who's being burnt to shit, and she's one of the most harmless people out there. She's I can't say she's necessarily a sweet person, but she's one of the most harmless people I've ever met in my life, and she's being burnt to absolute shit
Damn.
constantly. Constantly burnt to shit. Every single time she ends up in her flat is some of the worst radiation you've ever heard about. She's being burnt to shit every day, walking around with her head downtrodden. It doesn't stop ever. It does not stop.
Mm.
It's like they see her broken and unhappy and crying, and
Are
they
you
get
in?
off on it. These people get off on it.
Are you in
And I remember
London?
when I was in, huh?
Are you in
No, I'm in Brighton.
Brighton? Oh, okay. I thought you was in
Yeah.
London.
So I remember when I was in a hostel in Hove, and I was going through some of the worst toothache you've ever heard of in your life.
Mhm.
I was being electronically tortured in my jaw, which is something I still go through sometimes, right? Just not as extreme.
Right.
And I was going through some real torture when it came to my jaw. There was a perp walking past me, and they were basically laughing, saying, oh wow, she's really suffering. These people are
Shit.
sick.
It's
And then there
crazy.
was another PI that I've heard of, another Canadian one. She went through a heart attack because of the electronic weapons that were being fired on her. And the person, I'm not kidding, the person was standing over her,
Yeah.
smirking and saying, die, die, die. Oh, hang on. I think I've lost you. Hang on. Where is she? Yeah, I think I've lost her. But there was this TI in Canada. Where is she gone? Can you, hang on. I think, can I get Stella back? What happened to Stella? But anyway, like I was explaining, there was a TI in Canada who was going through a heart attack because of the electronic weapons that were being fired on her heart. But that's actually a very common thing among TIs, being fired on the heart, right? So she went through this, and the person standing over her, holding the technology in their hand, was gleeful over the fact that she was having a heart attack and standing over her and repeatedly saying die over and over again. So this Havana syndrome stuff, it's no fucking joke. Like I explained to Stella before, I don't know what happened to her. I don't know if I accidentally pressed a button or something, but there was somebody standing over an aging woman or an elderly woman as she was having a heart attack, and the person using the weapons against her were basically just gleeful over the fact that she could have died. So being an Havana syndrome victim, it's no joke out here. A lot of people want to use the word survivors again, like I'm not a victim, because the people that abuse us like to turn around and say, oh, you're just a professional victim. You're just a professional. Yeah, I'm a victim because it's still ongoing. That's the textbook definition of being a victim if you're having active crimes perpetrated against you. A victim doesn't mean that you're going to complain about your problems and do nothing. A victim doesn't mean that you are just sitting there waiting for something else to be upset about. That's not what a fucking victim is. It's not in the dictionary. Look at what the word victim actually means. and then get back to me. That's why I call myself a Havana syndrome victim, an abuse victim. If I was a survivor, then I've either would have gotten out of the situation, or I would have like, you know, I would have won my Havana syndrome case and it wouldn't be happening to me anymore. If I was a survivor, it would not still be happening to me. You don't survive something you're still going through. You are a victim of something that you're still going through. If people want to call themselves survivors, fine. But I refuse to be gaslit by a narcissistic system that dictates that if I'm going to, you know, that if I call myself a victim, that means I'm not going to do anything about it and I'm just going to sit by and let people fuck with me. No, I can be a victim and still have that fire up inside me to get motherfuckers together for doing this to me. You're just a professional victim, yeah, while you're still continuing to abuse me. You fuck with the wrong one, mate. Fucking with the wrong one, want to gaslight you into thinking that you're a loser just because you acknowledge the hurt that you've gone through. I ain't that type of bitch. Okay? Now, going back to what I was saying about attachment nurse, because Stella really led me into an interesting conversation. I'm so glad that she joined me on the live. But going back to the abusive mentality, again, I could argue that calling people victims or trying to put a negative connotation on the word victim, that could also go back to the abusive mentality of conflating vulnerability with actual harm. I'm not a victim and therefore you're not going to harm me. You know, if you're a victim, that means you're just going to let people walk all over you. No, that's not what it means. It means that there's an ongoing crime against you. That's what it means. Doesn't mean you're a loser. Doesn't mean you're lame. Doesn't mean you're feeling sorry for yourself. It doesn't mean you're not exercising boundaries. It means you're exercising boundaries and those boundaries are continuing to be violated no matter what you fucking do. That's what it means. You know, so yeah, you know, this whole thing about, oh, you're just a victim. You're just a victim. Yeah, I am a victim because you're still perpetrating the crimes against me. If you ever feel like that I shouldn't be a victim, maybe knock it the fuck off. Or you can continue trying to maintain control over the situation by gaslighting people. It's up to you. So now I'm gonna go. Really got to get on with my readings, man. This has been such an interesting conversation, and I'm really, really glad I had it. Shout out to Stella97. I don't know what's going on in your life, sweetness, but I can only hope that you can get through it as much as you can. It is to my mind that you might be a TI, but again, I don't know that because I don't know your life like that. You know, I don't really know what's going on in your life like that. All I can say is it does sound like something that I'm going through every day, and I really sympathize, and I'm really sorry. And you know, for anybody to go through this is fucked up, and I'm really sorry. But now I've got to go. I really have to go. I really have to get these daily readings done. And people are going to ask where their zodiac sign is. Oh, shit, man. You know what I mean? I got to get this shit done. But anyway, I love you guys. Peace and blessings. I'm definitely going to upload this one because this was a doozy. I loved it, man. So anyway, you guys take care. Peace and blessings. Bye-bye.